Okay. I'm going to call the October 17, 2023 meeting of the White Bear Lake Conservation District Board to order. We have a quorum. Thank you all for being here. We're called to order. So we're on item 3 of the agenda, which is approval of the agenda. Does anybody have any adjustments that they would like to make to tonight's agenda? Okay, would anyone like to make a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
I move we approve the agenda for this evening.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, that passes. Approval of the September meeting minutes. Does anybody have any adjustments that they would like to make to that, to those meeting minutes? Okay, would anybody like to make a motion to approve those meeting minutes?
I make a motion that we approve the minutes.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That passes. Next item on the agenda is public comments. Did you get it?
No.
We allow 15 minutes at each meeting for the public to comment on items that are not on tonight's agenda. Would anybody like to take advantage of that time? Okay, no one? Okay, moving on to new business. The LMC liability coverage, approval to not waive the statutory tort limits. Diane?
That's in your packet, and we receive our liability insurance through the League of Minnesota Cities. Every year they ask us to sign a waiver form, and our attorney advises that we sign and check the box that says that we do not waive. So I'd like to make a motion to be able to sign this, sign this, and check the box that says do not waive.
Second.
Monetary limits. I don't have my glasses on.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to do not waive the monetary limits. Any discussion? Does anybody have any questions on that Alan would benefit? Alan, will you just give us the 5-second?
Sure, just the elevator speech on this. By state law, cities are protected in the sense that there's a cap in terms of what you can be liable for. And so the League of Minnesota Cities, which is essentially an insurance company, it's the trust, and so it insures the vast majority of smaller cities, and other cities will self-insure, like Minneapolis, St. Paul, Duluth, things like that. So we're under the guise of the trust, and one of the requirements to do that is to not waive that limit, so that no matter what you do, you can never get sued for more than that amount of money. And so that's just a requirement of our coverage with them.
Any discussion or questions on any of that? Okay, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, that passes. Next item is the 2024 Form 5 permit application correction. LUC, do one of you want to take that?
Yeah, we had in the packet, there's one thing that was called out on the commercial permit application. So there's a public dock or mooring area fee we put in there. It came off the licensing fee, but we don't know what it is. So in the LUC, we suggested that we talked, what is it? Is it the mooring fees of outside Mataska Park, or because we're already charging for those moorings at $75, but this is it's a $60 fee, but I think it's redundant, but we're not really sure, so we just wanted to take it off the permit. But I don't think anybody had some input on what it was. So
would you like to make that motion?
I'd like to make a motion to remove public dock or mooring area fee from the commercial permit application Form 5.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to remove that. Any discussion?
Just to clarify, would this remove it from the fee schedule as well, or just from the form?
While we're talking form, let's do this motion, and then we can talk. Maybe we can talk about the license fee, what we want to do next on it, or do we do it in both? You really hate that fee.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. We're in discussion. Does this so I'm wondering, we're going through our review of our ordinances, and would this be covered in that review? I'm just wondering if it's necessary to take that action tonight.
Like a review of the license fee itself?
Yeah, like does that show up in review of that or not? Okay, I'm getting a no.
I don't think so.
Okay. Would you like to amend your motion to remove that fee from the fee schedule as well?
Sure, we can add that. That would be.
Does the second agree?
I agree.
Okay, so the motion is to remove it from this Form 5 and also remove it from the fee schedule. And it has a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay. All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, that passes.
We can take a look at the fees too and just make sure how they tie up to all the permits if there's anything else from our side too.
Okay, so that's good. That you'll do that and then bring that to another meeting
Yeah.
if need be? Okay.
We're pretty close.
Okay, 2024 lake use study, request for bids, draft, discussion. Meredith?
In our 2024 budget, we allocated money to complete a lake use study this next summer. I've been working with a committee of Mark and Alex to develop a request for proposals for that lake use study. Our last study was done in 2006, and the committee reviewed all the studies done in the past 25 years and developed a concept for our 2024 study. The RFB is in your packet, as well as the two studies we referenced in the RFB. I'll just go through a couple of things, because I know it was long if you read it all. So this includes updates on water quality, graphs over time, water clarity, total phosphorus, chloride, the lake grade, chlorophyll. Includes gathering information on aquatic plants and control, some information on fish and herbicide treatments, a graph of acres per year that we've been treating. It's going to count summer boats, boats that are on the lake, boats that are at docks and lifts and moorings, as well as boats on the shoreline. It's going to update our lake and watershed characteristics. It's going to go through lake levels and give us a graph on that, updated. Some weather data updated from that 2006 study. Some other water chemistry parameters, orthophosphorus, total catchdol, nitrogen, I don't want to say that word, I'm sorry. Keldol, thank you. And then lake use. It's going to do a shoreline inventory of boats, marina inventory of boats. It's going to count the riparian boats on docks and lifts. It's going to give us an average number of launches for peak and non-peak days. It's going to go through different boat types that are on the lake, using the lake, launched on the lake, and kept on the lake. It's going to give us some boat density parameters on peak versus non-peak days, and it's going to include a homeowner and lake user survey, which are going to be developed. So the changes we are making from the 2006 study is that we are not going to collect data on winter ice usage. We're not going to count the number of ice skaters or skiers out there. We're not going to count the number of ice houses, because since I've been on the board, and maybe even longer, we haven't seen any problems out there. We have no concerns about density of ice houses or cross-country skiers. We're going to include a section on boat density that was not in the 2006 study, but was in the 2005 study. And then the homeowner survey and lake user survey, which is also not included in the 2006 study, but was in the 2005 study. We're going to try to make sure that they're not collecting data on days where the weather is bad, that has happened in the past, and it seems to skew the data a little bit. So if the wind is over 20 miles an hour, there's a threat of rain, the high temperature is lower than 65 degrees, or the water temperature is below 60, we're not going to have them collect data for those days. And then we're changing the boat definitions a little bit. We're putting canoes, kayaks, paddle boards, anything that's human-powered into a category called human-powered boats. We're going to group ski boats with runabouts as the impact on the lake is likely similar, and we're creating a new category of runabout called a towboat, and this is boats with towers that are specifically used for water sports, often used for wakeboarding and wake surfing. And I can answer any questions. Our intent with this is just to give you guys a month to look through it if you want to, if you have time to, and then get it approved at the next meeting. Comments on it can be sent to Sherry, and she'll send to the committee to make changes. But if anyone has any questions tonight, I'd be happy to answer. Or Mark, do you have anything to add?
Good summary.
Okay.
Nothing to add.
No, this is an RFP, but do we know how long these studies have taken in the past? Is it like, what's the duration or scope? Is it like spring to fall, or what do they usually do? 'Cause
So the bigger studies, they've studied some winter days and some summer days, and then they've presented in the fall. So I would expect that we're not asking for winter days in this study right now, that they'll study some summer days and then get information to us likely late fall next year or winter. But
how many days do they usually do you know?
So we're asking for the potential for 6 summer days of data collection.
Got it.
One of those being a non-peak day and at least 3 peak days.
Which I think is more than some of the other studies. I think a lot of the past studies were 3 days. And the weather really affected the
results on whatever the counts
So
were.
it looked like, the trend of lake usage was doing this when it was, they just randomly got a crummy weather day.
Cool.
Derek?
You said the plan was to leave out collecting winter data due to there was no issues or no perceived issues. I guess given the fact that there hasn't been a study since 2006, I understand there's no perceived issues, but would it be valuable to collect winter data? Because we have a gap.
Yeah,
And this will further the gap if we skip it.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, and we did discuss that. The one thing we are going to include is some questions on the homeowner and lake user surveys about winter lake usage to try to catch anything that we may be missing if there is some kind of problem going on in the winter. But your point is well taken. We can consider it for sure.
Especially if we go another 17 years without a study.
Yeah, and I think maybe if we directed what we wanted, they were counting cross-country skiers, and I just don't know what we do with that data. The group talked about it. If there's 12 or 26, what are we going to do with that data? And the number of ice houses, the density isn't hitting max density out there any year that I've seen. What are we going to do with that data? It's just how we discussed it, and we didn't know what we'd do with that data, so why collect it?
What were the key differences between the 2006 study and the 2005 study?
So the 2006 study reviewed more trends, so it was there were a lot more graphs in it. It included more information on water quality than the 2005 study.
Which one did you like better?
2006.
Yeah, it was more comprehensive.
So is that why we're
That's
going
what we're
for?
basing the
Okay.
RFP on.
Yeah, great.
But then there were 2 points in the 2005 study which were not included in the 2006 study that we did like, the surveys and then the boat density collection.
Any other questions at the moment? Scott?
Sorry.
Yeah. There might very well be, I like the number of ice houses, like who cares, but I have seen a trend of more people using like tents than permanent overnight night houses. Whether what you do with that, I don't know. There are an awful lot of cars, SUVs on the ice, and I guess they could be counted. Then again, what does that mean? One thing, since it's been so long since we've conducted one of these, and maybe this is just in the homeowner survey, but in 2015 we were infested with zebra mussels, which probably makes the lake clearer. And I'm wondering how much it's impacting the homeowners. That could be an issue. of some interest.
And is that something that you're suggesting be included in the homeowner survey?
Yeah. You know, I mean, it seems to me that nobody talks about zebra mussels anymore. Like when they first hit and everything was encrusted and oh my goodness, what are you going to do? But is it an issue, you know, for the lake environment, for the people using the lake?
In the request for proposal, we didn't define the actual questions for the survey, just a similar number of questions so that the firms can quote a price.
Yep.
And we can design the survey later.
Yeah, I think we're also concerned that people are letting relatives and friends or people on whatever use their docks. I don't know how we ask that politely. But because essentially if you're charging money for something, then you're a commercial dock.
I had one question. The previous studies, were they done by the conservation district, or were they different entities that were doing them? Because it seems like we did a bunch in the early 2000s there. Was that due to the low lake at the time and some of the battles there, or what caused a lot of those surveys in the beginning?
I'm not sure what.
Maybe the first question: Did we request those in the past, or is?
We did. We requested them and paid for them.
Yeah.
Not all the data was data collected directly by the person we paid to do the studies. Sometimes they're getting data from the DNR or other sources as well and adding it in there and noting where the data is from.
No.
Sometimes they're just getting secondary data. But there is a lot of primary data collection as well.
The reason why we stopped it in 2006? Or it just fell off?
I think in 2008, the lake level got so low that
Other problems.
The lake went down and everything went to heck.
deal with. I mean, weeds were popping up where they never were, so why do a study
Yeah.
kind of thing?
People weren't putting their boats in, they weren't putting their docks out.
Yeah.
You know, they were combining their docks to make them long enough to get out. Everything went to heck.
Yeah. Got it. Makes sense.
Other questions at the moment? So the idea is that we review this over the next month. We we approve it at our November meeting. We get it out the door shortly after that to interested proposers, and those proposals based on this are due December 15th. Or so we can have some flexibility there. And then we review those prior to our January meeting. And is the idea that we would make an award at the January meeting?
Yes, I think we could extend to February if we needed to, but
Okay.
January would be great.
All right.
And then if someone has something that they feel strongly about, email Sherry and she'll forward it on to the committee. I think if you feel something should be counted on the ice, just give us an idea on what you think should be counted, and we will include it.
Are you going to ask any opinions or summaries on things?
So they've historically made recommendations at the end of the survey. We didn't say not to.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions, discussion on this at the moment? Okay. Well, thank you, Meredith, Mark, and Alex.
Correct.
For the hard work. It's good to be at this point. Anything else you want to add about that, Meredith?
No, thank you all for looking through it.
Okay. Okay, buoy placement and map. Meredith and Mike.
Okay. So this is the map we've been talking about for a couple of months now. We're trying to get a map of where all the buoys are going to be. Mike has it. It was in your board packet, I believe, in August. And this is on the schedule tonight, I think, because we are talking about creating permanent dates for buoy in, buoy out. This came to our attention because there is a commercial entity operating on the lake that complained after our buoys were taken out this year that they could not operate without the buoys in per their insurance, I believe. So we'd like to just create a schedule, and I will suggest one here, but it's totally up for discussion. How about 2 weeks after the ice is out, we'll have buoys in, and we'll remove on or about October 15th of every year. Sherry had contact with the Lake Minnetonka Conservation District, and this is consistent with what they are doing, and this commercial entity does operate on Minnetonka as well. Does anyone have any ideas?
Start with it.
Yeah.
It sounds
Great.
good. Start.
Second.
Actually, a motion. Okay, so what do we do with this? Okay, so we can have a little discussion on this. So so we get the buoy placement map together. We identify buoy in, buoy out, and then what would we do with that, Meredith?
Hopefully publish it somewhere on our social media for sure, on our website for sure, and perhaps in some kind of local publication, perhaps the White Bear Laker if that goes on next year, or the White Bear Press, so the public is aware of where the buoys are, what our dates are, and keep that consistent year after year. Here's the map for the year.
Yep.
I don't want to pile on, but maybe if we could get a good article that even says this buoy means this. This buoy means don't go between here and shore.
Yeah.
Because I don't think a lot of people understand what the buoys actually mean.
It's a great idea.
Yeah. If we did Laker again, that could be a whole article right there.
Okay, any other discussion on, so next steps? Somebody puts some map together and the board looks at it, or what do we think?
So the map was in your August board packet. We can add it again in the packet in November. And ideally, this would be a map we'd approve on a yearly basis. As the water levels change, we move our buoys around a little bit. Maybe someone on the board notices somewhere that needs a buoy or something like that. But it can change year to year. And then we'd add in our buoy dates onto the map. Perhaps get it in the packet next month or January for approval.
Okay, Mike?
The map, the buoy placements are specific areas, but the actual dropping of the buoy is not always in the same place. In other words, you've got a rock bar and you have buoys here, 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 and here. And then they were taken out. And then the boat club, your boat club, put them back in. They put them here, 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 and here. So we can only identify an area that would be buoyed. And I think that Mark said that Scott, as long as they understand what the buoy means more than having to have, it's not going to be in the same place every year, but it's going to be very close to the same place every year. So we could identify the areas that would be buoyed and what the buoy means.
Okay. And then this is something, as you mentioned, Meredith, that we would maybe approve each spring for that operating season.
Yeah. 2 weeks after ice is out is pretty brave.
Yeah.
Do you think we should go later?
Having done it for a long time, yes.
Discussion about
dangerous.
When did they complain this spring that the buoys weren't in?
I think May 1st was what
The problem was that they had an interim director that didn't know, and so they didn't go out till June. But
Okay.
he had said, I don't have it in front of me, but he said he didn't know that after ice out, you put them in. So he didn't say specifically what day.
Probably want them in before fishing opener, right? Maybe.
Always been the case.
Yeah.
But that's later.
Yeah.
Second week of May?
That's May, the middle of May. So 1st of May is reasonable.
Yeah.
First week of May?
Yeah.
Weather depending. I mean, you hate to put a hard date and then
To be in before
thunderstorms.
Memorial Day and out after Labor Day, but that's too close. That now people are using the lake more. So, May 1st is reasonable.
No later than May 1st, and then if they get in early, they get in early.
Prior to May 1st or by May 1st, yeah. Because it depends on the weather. You can't just go out and drop them when it's raining and blowing.
Weekends or whatever.
Yeah, it's got to be calm, and you got to be able to see where those rocks are. But who's going to do it? And who's going to monitor them? Whoever does it should monitor them all summer long. Put in the no-wake buoys along by the island with the bridge and the Mataska Park, and the other rock bars. And then if the lake does go down, there's a couple other spots where they go.
Well, I think we have to maintain responsibility for making that decision, and then it's just a question of who we hire. I think, John Redpath has been doing it for us in the past, and it seems if he's still willing, he would be a good candidate to do it for us in the future. But maybe that's a discussion we can have with him over the winter, see if he's still interested in that. And if he's not, then I guess we have to find someone else to try to do that work for us.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good on that for now? Okay, thank you, Meredith and Mike. City of White Bear Lake, Lions Park, and Veterans Park Fishing Pier permit applications. That's me. So I think the idea here is that these two structures, Lions Park and Veterans Park, are basically permanent structures. And rather than have them apply for a permit each year, maybe consider those to be permanent structures and have them notify us and make an application if they have any intent or plans to change the structures, I think is the idea. And and what do we want to do with this? Do we need a motion on that, or do we just start handling it that way, or?
Do we need to just make a quick change in the ordinance to say any permanent structure once approved is permanently approved unless altered, kind of thing? I'm just throwing that out.
Yeah, yep, could. I think at the moment, well, I'll just do it this way. I'm going to make a motion that we consider the Lions Park Pier and the Veterans Park Fishing Pier permanent structures. Second. We have a motion and a second. So what do we think about that? Any discussion? Mike?
I think that your system would work as long as it pertains to a public permanent pier.
Okay.
Not a private.
Okay, so good. So the motion is specific to Lions Park and Veterans Park. So that should cover us in that regard.
Yeah, public.
Yep.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, it just simplifies it because every year they give us a permit money, and every year we send the check back and approve it. So,
yeah, so we do that once unless there's some change. Chris?
We're just going to use the permits that we have for this year for them to track it, or would we, like, because they did. We talked about that in the LUC. It's like, do we just keep one permit, or does the permit even need? Does it matter?
Utilize the permit that we have. Is that the question?
For ongoing, and we can tell the city, we got your permit for these. You're good until it changes.
we should go back to the. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, you're good.
We should go back to the original permit from when they installed it and all the paperwork and said, boom, here's when we approved it. This is what we approved in 1990, whatever. And
one issue with that may be that I don't know that the Lions Park Pier has ever had a permit. So maybe what we would do is just consider their 2024 applications as the starting point and go from there. Mike?
So presently that would make sense. And then I'm thinking about, excuse me, into the future. A permit for a permanent dock is like $5,000, and that's peanuts to the cost of a dock. And so somebody would say, well, if you're not going to charge me every year or review it, and I'll say change it, then I could put in a permanent dock, and over a number of years, it'll be worth it because I won't have to put it in, take it out, and you could encourage more permanent docks.
but we'd have to prove any permanent dock.
Yeah.
So are you?
That's why I say only public
Yeah.
docks.
So again, the motion is only for these two, and if others come forward, then we can deal with those at that time. Or do you think there'd be value in us amending the motion to say public docks and specifically Lions Park and Veterans Park?
I would amend. That's what I would do. Yep.
Okay, so I'll amend the motion to be only public piers and specifically Lions Park and Veterans Park.
Agreed.
Okay. So that's the amended motion. Any further discussion?
I recall the fee being for inspection, right? And we waived the fee because they inspected it themselves, correct?
Yeah, we've been waiving the fee for the fishing pier for forever.
Yeah, I guess as long as there's I don't know, an understanding that the inspection should probably be annual.
Good. That the responsibility
Right.
For inspecting belongs to the owner of the pier, or
If that's a concern, yeah. I mean,
Alan, any input on that?
I don't know about the fishing pier, but I believe that the operating agreement that the city has with the DNR requires that of them to maintain that structure, maintain its safety and whatnot. So that's something that's been delegated to the city by the DNR. They brought the structure in and gave it to the city, so it's sort of on permanent loan from the DNR. And so that's one of the reasons that we didn't have a permit, was kind of a difference of opinion as to who was supposed to actually apply for that, whether it was the DNR because they own it or the city because that's on city property. Our assessment was that the city should, because it says in the agreement, if you need local permits, you get them. That's not our job. So it'd be good to have one on file and just call it a once and done for sure, which is what I understand you're trying to do here.
Right, and this idea that of confirming that those entities are responsible for the inspections, is that something you would advise us to take any action on? Or?
We can certainly put it in the letter saying, here are your permits. Like I said, I don't know about the fishing pier.
Sure.
Because it's a public structure. It's their liability. So I would guess that the engineer, somebody in Public Works, is going out there and making sure it's safe. It would be very foolish if they didn't, right? Because, anyone can go on at any time. So I would think that they've got that covered.
Okay.
Anyone who's been out on the one in Lions Park, there's not much to it, but I'd certainly qualify it as safe. The last time I was out on it. So.
Okay. So Sherry, will you remember to put that in the letter?
Yep.
Okay, thanks. Believer. Okay, I'm going to, any further discussion, or I'm going to call the vote? Okay, I'm going to, so all those in favor of the amended motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign? Okay. Next item on the agenda, aeration regulation. Meredith?
Okay, this is something that the executive committee has been discussing. It's in our bylaws that we're supposed to regulate the construction and use of mechanical and chemical means of de-icing on the lake, and it's something historically we have not been doing. The DNR does require a permit for de-icers, and there's been 2 permits given in the last couple of years, one in Commercial Bay and one on the east side of the lake. So we're looking at ways that we can start regulating this, at least keeping some kind of record of who is putting in a de-icer. And then eventually want to develop a way to notify the public, because it can cause a thin ice issue, a public safety issue. And we just wanted some discussion tonight about this from the board.
Those are basically bubbler units that prevent the ice from freezing, or the water from freezing.
There is one in Matamidi, and it does get complaints. And I don't know what the ruling is. I would think that would I wonder if there's somewhere where it says if you put one of these on a lake that you're responsible for a certain area around it for liability.
Well, they have to have DNR permits too, which
Right.
maybe that covers it, but I don't know that.
Have we seen one? Have we seen one of those permits?
I only have, excuse me, the DNR only gave me a list of who has it and some other data, which I meant to send to you, but I didn't. So I don't have the actual permit. And I did ask them for it, but I never got it.
Before you duplicate effort, I think we should see what their requirements are.
Sure.
And if there's marking, if there's other things, because I'm sure there's some assigning of liability. But if they don't require marking, for example, that would be a good thing for you guys to do. Our permit is the same but different, and we have other requirements if you're going to use one.
Sherry, will you follow up again and ask for a copy of those permits? Okay, thank you. Any other discussion questions on this item at the moment? Yeah.
I just have some relevant information to that question. Public notice in a newspaper of general circulation on 2 occasions between 5 and 60 days before you plan to turn on your system. So that's on the permit itself. One of the check boxes.
On a standard DNR permit for something like that? Okay, good.
So,
yeah, I wonder if that's been going on. So this, I think that, the point that Meredith is making is a good one, that we need to kind of wrap our arms around this just so we know what's going on, since we have some responsibility in that regard through our ordinances. So I think that's good. Thanks for raising it.
There's also a requirement to post signs and thin ice signs and warning signs, and so.
Yep, that's good. So it sounds like to Alan's point that a lot of that may be covered in the DNR permit. So we'll follow up with the DNR, try to get our hands on those permits, and then we'll go from there.
But there's a notification requirement.
Now, say that again?
There's a notification requirement.
Yeah, published in a paper.
Yeah, well, it should be published on our website.
So I
That
think
they're out there.
Does it specify where that's published, Darren?
General
Okay.
circulation newspaper is what it said.
General circulation.
So yeah, so it would have to be published in some newspaper, probably the press.
But we should get copied on those permits. So
Yeah,
that
agreed.
It can go on a website, it can go out on a Twitter, certainly telling the ice fisher people and ice boaters and anyone. Is anyone policing that from the DNR is the other question. Is anyone checking for the be careful thin ice markers?
Yep.
Yeah.
So I think this is the kind of the first step we're taking to, or maybe the second, to kind of get involved in that as we should be.
So if they're not, we should, right?
True.
So.
True. Meredith?
And we had discussed some initial steps we could take. One of those was just creating a very simple form. And then in our last issue of the Laker and on our website, posting the form and then saying in the Laker, if you plan to have a de-icer this year, please contact our office to fill out this form. And then we're starting to do some, I don't know, figuring out of who has these at least.
Okay.
I'll make the form and send it to the executive committee, or?
Yeah, that'd be a good start.
Okay.
Bring it to a future meeting. Okay, that was good discussion. Any further discussion on that? Okay, we're moving on. Thank you, Meredith. Unfinished business, VFW, EAW, second draft review, board comments, that's me. So a couple of things. We reviewed the information that was sent in based on our first round of comments, and we've come up with comments on that second submittal. And so it's going to require additional input from the applicant. One thing that did occur with this last submittal is they only submitted about half of the EAW, the worksheet, maybe because of a scanning error. And so to try to accelerate things, but now we have the entire application that just came in late on Friday. The entire worksheet came in late on Friday. So what I would like to do is to have Sherry send that to the board members, have the board members look at that, take 1 week to look at that. So basically provide comments to Sherry by October 24th. And then Sherry, and then the next thing I would like is to allow Sherry to send those out immediately as supplemental comments so that we get them into the hands of the applicant as soon as possible. And what that means is that tonight I'm going to make a motion here to approve these comments that are in your board packet. But what it would mean is that the supplemental comments wouldn't go through that approval process. They would just get sent directly to the applicant. And the hope there is that then the applicant can turn those around quickly and have something that's more complete for our November meeting.
Is that in the board packet or separate attachment?
So I will be sending that complete one after the meeting tonight. Those that require hard copies, I gave you one tonight so that you have that.
Yeah, the entire EAW came in Friday at 3:33.
Yeah, I was just asking, I have the electronics, so maybe I don't have the comments.
Yeah, you should.
You should. It's in the packet.
13 in the packet.
13.
It's just a one-pager. The header at the top is VFW EAW second draft review board comments.
Right after the proposal for the lake study.
don't worry on me. Don't wait on me.
Okay.
Brad,
Yeah,
for
Mark.
context, these comments
Yep.
were provided prior to the version received Friday, or these
No.
are comments in reaction to the version received Friday?
Okay, so good question. So I'm just going to back up for a moment. So there was, so back in maybe August, we provided, okay, so in August, we received the EAW, the first round. We reviewed that and provided comments that were approved at our September meeting on the first round. And then what happened was that the second one came in right before the September meeting, and so there wasn't time for us to review that. So we reviewed that between the September meeting and this meeting. One of the things that was noticed during the review was that the application didn't, the worksheet didn't seem to be complete. And so I had a conversation with Luke Michaud about that, and yeah, he confirmed that it was basically it was a double-sided, and only one, every other page showed up. And so the entire worksheet was submitted. So we had that conversation last week. The entire worksheet was submitted on Friday, this past Friday in the afternoon, and so nobody has reviewed that yet. Okay. And so these comments are on the half of that worksheet that were actually submitted. And so what we're doing here is, now that we have the entire worksheet, we will supplement these comments with a review of the second, every other page. And what I'm asking is that rather than go through this process that we've been going through, where the board approves the comments that get sent back, if the board is okay with us just sending those supplemental comments rather than waiting till the November meeting to approve those comments. Alan, do you see any issues with that approach?
No, as long as they're meaningful comments, right?
Sure.
And I would expect that Sherry will be able to winnow those out if we don't need duplicates of, hey, what about this?
Sure.
So, yeah.
Yeah, or
just in the interest of saving time.
Yeah, that's right. And it's, yep, okay. So I'm going to make a motion to approve the second draft review board comments that are in your packet tonight. So there, I made that motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve sending these comments. Any discussion?
Did you find it?
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, that passes. And then again, if Sherry will send out soon the entire EAW application that we received last Friday, and if you could provide any comments to Sherry by next Tuesday, the 24th, that'd be great. And then the idea is that Sherry would send any supplemental comments to the applicant by Thursday, the 26th. Okay. Onward. Executive Committee report. That's me. So the Executive Committee did meet, and we discussed a few items. The majority of the meeting was actually with Dan Skolin from the DNR, and the intent of that meeting was to request that the DNR work more closely with the board on the DNR permits, and also to request that some of the detailed information included in the DNR permits, for example, number of docks, dock lengths, that those items be left out of the DNR permit, and that those are handled at the local level by us, by this board. And then the DNR permit would be a little more global, identify the number of allowed slips, and include, there are a bunch of standard provisions in the DNR permit that those standard provisions would remain, but this approach would give the board the flexibility to make the decision on the lengths of docks, dock layouts at the local level. So it would give us an opportunity if, like as an example, this past summer where Docks White Bear and Tallies wanted to butt their docks up against each other, this approach would give us the ability to approve that or to review and approve it, as opposed to going back to the DNR and asking them to adjust their permit, the DNR permit. And I would say that Dan Skolin was open to that approach. So I think that's the way that will likely work, I would expect, going forward. Now, one thing that Dan did request is that once the board approves a particular dock layout, that we forward that to the DNR so that they have that on file, so that they know what the board approved as far as the dock layout. Yeah, I think that's it for that one. Any questions on that?
What are they going to do with it? Just put in their records? What if it's not congruent with their permit? Are they going to act on it, come out and issue a citation? Did he give you any information there?
I think that ideally, the way it would work is that their permit that they write would be general enough that we would have flexibility. So, as long as we don't, say, exceed the number of slips that they allow in their permit, we shouldn't have to have any real back and forth with them on what we approve, other than we would give it to them so that they have that in their files.
Really just FYI.
Like that. Okay, moving on. Okay. Buoy placement, removal, we talked about that. The Lions Park Pier, there was a little discussion about, DNR, I think they technically own the pier, but they've ceded all responsibility to the city of White Bear Lake. So
and placed it, and then said, "Here's our operating agreement," which has been in place since the 90s, I believe.
Right, and that operating agreement seems pretty straightforward and clear. Yeah, good. We discussed the request for proposals for the lake study and buoy monitoring during the operating season. We also discussed the EAW for the VFW, the aeration for ice control, and then briefly we discussed ordinance review work. Any questions on any of that, or most of that stuff we've talked about elsewhere in this meeting? Okay, so that's that. Next, the Lake Quality Committee, Mike.
Excuse me, the lake level today is 922.24.
Way to go, Mike.
922.24. It's up 3 inches from last month. Lake temperature is 54 degrees. That's pretty chilly if you stick your foot in there. The Phragmites treatment was done this past Wednesday, October 11th. We'll find out in the spring how effective it was. It was just a perfect day to do it. It was sunny, calm. I don't know how they pick the days, but they do a good job. And the last thing is next month, Steve McComas will be here for his annual roundup. So think up your questions, make them good. Try to stump them. I don't think you can. I think it's impossible to stump them, but maybe. Lake questions, of course, nothing about docks. But anything you can think of, and other lakes too, because he travels the state of Minnesota and Wisconsin helping out lakes. So next month, Steve McComas.
Any questions for Mike? Okay, thank you, Mike. Lake Utilization Committee, Mark?
3 agenda items. The first one, Snyder Bay Beach Club. 11 boats, no change from last year. LUC committee approved, and I so move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Any discussion?
I'll note that this is my association, so I will be recorded as abstaining. I think it's also interesting to note that we have a permit from the DNR from 2001, and there was some discussion by email with Dan Scullin today, and he confirmed that they've changed their rules, so this is no longer required for a non-commercial dock.
Okay, and can we just talk about that for a moment so that everybody's clear on that?
We did talk about it in the LUC.
Yeah, so basically, at some point, they went and got a DNR permit, but that's no longer required for docks less than 8 feet wide or non-commercial. So they don't have to have a DNR permit. At some point, they did have one, but they no longer have to have it. And what had happened in the past is that the DNR permit years ago said for 10 boats. Since that point in time, we've allowed them, and they asked for a change, and we gave them the change to 11. So this year it's coming in at no change. But even though the old DNR permit says 10, no DNR permit is required. So it nullifies.
And so last year was the year that they switched to 11?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so there's a motion and a second to approve. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, so that passes.
The next one was the Red Path Wolgamott water ski courses. And that one, it was brought to our attention that the state requires that buoys being put in the water have to be approved, temporary, have to be approved by the county sheriff. And so my understanding is we tabled it, short answer, and they're going to go back to Ramsey County, and it was brought to our attention that Washington County does not require it. So just between now and ice out, they've got to get approval from the Ramsey County Sheriff to say, yes, we're going to put these courses in temporarily. And then the next one was tabled as well, Manitou Island Association, for pretty much the same thing. You're going to put in buoys in the lake, but you don't have a permit from Ramsey County to install those buoys. Yeah, we'll just leave it at that for now.
Okay, any questions for Mark? Okay, thank you, Mark. Lake Education Committee, Scott?
Yeah, there'll be one more issue of the Laker, which will be out next year sometime, but we need to provide some material for them this month. And we've got some good ideas, and it'll just be a matter of cranking it out. I'm not sure if, are they going to issue that like after the cleanup date?
November 30th is a deadline, so I'm not sure.
I'm not sure what the publication date is, but it's going to be before like cleanup for sure.
Because, I mean, we could, depending on if we want, because we permit a lot of winter events, and the question is it going to be before those or after those? Because that would be a good content.
Okay.
Meredith, you have any social media?
Okay, so this month on our social media, I'm going to put the lake level and temperature as usual, and invite the public to come to next month's meeting to hear Steve McComas talk about the lake. And those are the two things I have marked. If anyone has anything they'd like me to put on, I have a couple weeks space.
Okay, so if anybody has any suggestions, let you know or Sherry know.
Me. Straight to me.
Meredith. Okay, so if you have any suggestions, please let Meredith know. Okay, any questions for Scott or Meredith? Okay. Treasurer's report, Mike?
Treasurer's report, looks like Sherry's been busy this month. Need to approve debit card purchase 16 and 17 and checks number 4901 through 4908. And that is my motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve those items. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Oh, yeah, good. Okay, so let me just see here. Okay, so can I just dovetail on your report, Mike?
Yeah.
It may not be appropriate, but it's good to bring it up. So the office downstairs has some issues with water infiltration into a portion of the office. There's some mold on some of the carpet and maybe a little bit along the drywall there. And we took a look at it after the executive committee meeting the other day, and it seems like it would be valuable to have a HEPA filter down in that space just to kind of clean up that air a little bit. And then was there something else too?
Dehumidifier.
A dehumidifier as well. And so I would like to make a motion to approve Sherry looking for those items and approve up to, does anybody know what something like that costs?
$1,000.
Approve, what, $1,000
Be
cover?
that much, but
Perfect. I'd like to make a motion to approve $1,000, up to $1,000 for Sherry to purchase the HEPA filter and the dehumidifier.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Has the landlord been notified and requested to repair leaks?
I would say yes, and maybe progress is slow.
I told you.
And I would just like to add that right after you saw that and I sent them an email, they took the moldy carpet away. By the way, the carpet installation has been canceled for those that don't know until we get this figured out. And they cut out the wall where the mold was on the wall.
Good. Yeah.
So I will after this, I will let them know that that's what our plan is.
Okay, that sounds good. And I think one thing, I'm not an expert in this, but I wonder how easy it's going to be to get that water infiltration problem solved. It just seems like it might be coming through the bottom of the wall at the floor, and so
it's seep.
yeah.
You're remodeling out there, just add it to the list.
The only way out of it is drain tile it.
Yeah.
I've dealt with damp basements in the past. There's only one way out.
Yeah, and it may be that we can leave the carpet back a little bit and have that just be, concrete floor so that it's easier to manage that water when it does come in.
There's a drain down there too?
No, but I talked to Andy and I said, how far do you want me to be away from the wall? So I have to leave a 3-foot strip. This may not even be taken care of course, until next year.
Right. Okay.
I mean, a dehumidifier will fill up a bucket or it'll put it out a hose. I don't know if there's a...
They just said there's no drain. That's what I was.
Yeah, I think it.
Bathroom and pour it.
Oh, you
But
get the lug.
Yeah, well, it'll automatically shut off when it's full. And so, yeah, it will require a little maintenance. Okay. Any further discussion on that motion? No?
We could get some sand and make a beach down there.
Okay. Any,
Permit for that?
okay, any further? Well, it doesn't require buoys yet, so that's a good thing.
Treat it for milfoil.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, thank you. And thank you, Mike, for letting me dovetail there. Any questions for Mike on that treasurer's report? On to board council report. Alan?
Yeah, Chair and Board, I'll just touch briefly on the buoys because I'm the one who got the call that Redpath had apparently taken them out. So the Your Boat Club people called me basically saying, where'd the buoys go? Because, of course, their rental period goes out a lot longer than basically what we consider to be the end of the season. And so if we do get into a tough spot in terms of finding a contractor or a jobber that's willing to do it, they certainly suggested that they would have an interest, because obviously they have a financial interest in making sure that they're out there, because they're trusting complete strangers with their fleet of boats to come in. And so not having things marked is obviously a big risk for their operation. So we can have that discussion, I guess, over the winter if we need. So they would be willing to do it, at least as they talked to me, as a donation in kind, just for to do that. And they did put them out, and I'm assuming they got pretty close.
I haven't checked to see if they brought them in. Their season was over on the 15th.
Right.
And they said they were going to bring them in, so.
Yeah, and that was kind of, I didn't really have the authority to say go ahead, but I said go ahead, because, I mean, they needed to get them out there.
Oh, and if they haven't, I'll call you.
They're
Okay.
still in.
Yeah. So I'm not really asking if they're pulled out of the water yet. I'm really asking, did they do a decent enough job where they put them?
Yeah, and Mike, what do you think about that? I think I know the answer to this, but when they put the buoys back in, were they close to right?
Yeah, they were great.
Okay.
They were they weren't better, but they, it wasn't more of a string. I told them that you can't have it short. I don't know if you care about this or not, but the chain is 10 feet long. So if you throw it in 3 feet of water, the buoy's going to sit like this, and it's going to wear a hole in the bottom of the buoy from rocking. So you got to go out and at least get it in 6 feet of water, 5 feet of water. And so they went out a little bit farther, and they dotted them around, and I didn't go out to really check. But they put them in different places on Bel Air Beach, and Diane mentioned that. Because, usually when one person puts them in, they end up putting them in the same place all the time. But they covered the area just as good. So that's what I say. There's areas for buoys, but you can't say the buoy is always going to be right there. Mm-hmm. And they did a good job. So I think they did a good job putting them in. Now we'll see if they take them out.
Good. Yeah, and the way that went down, Mike was good enough to meet with them, since they had their manager in the little doghouse that's at their operation, which, somewhere in Commercial Bay there. I've not been in it, but anyway. So thanks to having the map, apparently they were able to follow it and do it adequately.
They have the same map and marked at the same areas.
Okay, good.
I mean, it's obvious. That's the lake.
If you know the lake, right.
You guys got to get out there.
Anyway, that worked out well enough, and so I don't think any props were damaged in the experiment, put it that way.
And who will communicate with the Your Boat Club folks to get the buoys out, bring them into the office, or however that's going to work?
I can call Mike tomorrow.
Okay.
So, he said if there's any issues, just call him. So I did save his number on my phone.
Okay.
That's one of the two guys. I can't remember, Doug or something like that. I don't remember the other guy. But anyway, I will call them tomorrow. Okay, and as far as patrol goes, pretty quiet month as far as the conservation officer goes. So it was pretty quiet, needless to say. Anyone living on the lake, everyone just kind of did their thing. And I was surprised at even how many structures and boats were removed from the north side of the lake, thanks to that extra little dose of water, because there were a lot of them that were just beached. So it looked like it was going to be tough to get boats out for a while. So anyway, I'd stand for questions.
Any questions for Alan?
Are we going to ask Michael Tombaga to come talk to us next month, or?
Certainly can. Mike's now off of Water Patrol, so that's why I mentioned Jeremy earlier,
okay.
Which might be why you looked at me like, huh? So Jeremy Bolin is our new sergeant in charge of Lake Patrol, Lake and Water Patrol.
Okay.
So I can certainly ask him to come.
And do we want that next month, or maybe January or February?
It might be more efficient to do it at the end of the season after they're all wound down, and gives them a chance to put their stats together. So
right.
I'll be happy to invite them.
In November we have Steve McComas. We have a bunch of Commercial Bay applications. So maybe like January.
January's fine. Yeah.
Okay.
I just want to be sure we get the invoice before the end of the year. So
What's that?
we need to get the invoice, and usually that comes after they talk. But I'll make sure we get that.
Yeah, is that contract through this year or through next year?
We pay it before the year's end.
Trying to remember how long it's good for.
I'd have
think
to
it's
look
annual.
for it.
I'll have to look again too. We'll figure that out.
Okay.
Services too.
Right, it's an annual contract, but yeah.
Oh, yeah, but from what to what? I think it's
From what to-
January to January.
Yeah, I just can't remember if it expires at the end of this year or not, so
Okay.
we'll figure that out.
And so Sherry, will you hit them up for the invoice?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions for Alan?
All right, thank you.
Announcements?
As I mentioned, the carpet installation was canceled. I am going to reschedule it. I have to look at some dates. The office is pretty torn apart. I'm almost all out of there, but I will need some help whenever that gets scheduled again, and thank you to those who had offered the last time. So I'll keep you posted, but I will need just some help moving things out and in.
And you'll communicate that
Oh, yeah.
via email.
Excuse me, yes. And then just that the next board meeting is on Tuesday, November 21st.
Okay, any questions for Sherry? Anybody else have any announcements they'd like to make at this time? Okay, we're to the last item on the agenda, adjournment. Would anybody like to make a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
And a second to adjourn. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.